Hello, everybody. Happy Tuesday, but more specifically, happy Transformational Tuesday. Because we heart leaders, we're focused on transformation today. We want to identify, really to take the time to be strategic about it, to reflect on it, to identify what needs to change at work, in our personal life, at work, like in our life. What needs to change? Is it factors such as a mindset? Is it an attitude? Is it a behavior? Is it a process? Is it a strategy? Because what we're seeing is that we're not getting the outcomes that we want. So something has to give, right? So we're being intentional about taking time to identify what it is that needs to change. That is what Transformation Tuesday is all about. Everyone, I'm Dr. Wanita Mercer. I am the founder and chief heart leader at Lead My Heart Executive Coaching and Consulting. And what you're watching right now is the first episode of November series called Alignment and Balance in Executive Leadership. This is really something that's, gosh, really near and dear to my heart, because as an entrepreneur, I get so tongue-tied on these. Why does that happen? But as an entrepreneur, as an executive leader in the C-suites, okay, of my own company, um, really a party of one. And I know that many of you can relate from an entrepreneur standpoint, or maybe even a small business standpoint. Gosh, you're wearing so many hats. And so you like to think of it as the CEO, but in reality, you're not just the CEO, you're the CFO, you're the COO, you're so many things. And it can be overwhelming at times. But then you also look at people who are in C-suite or executive leaders or middle managers, even in larger corporations, where you're also wearing a lot of hats. You're having to put in a lot of work. And so often, because that position requires so much of us, it begins to spill over into what we often refer to as other parts of our life, right? That we often compartmentalize here and there. But what I'm seeing is just the overwhelming sense of burnout, frustration, and tiredness from executives. And so I thought that, especially as we approach the holidays and we understand work doesn't slow down, we're having to do more in less time, especially as year end, different reports and things are coming out, and we're preparing for those. Gosh, it's a lot. It's a lot. And so I wanted to do this series as a way for us to have a conversation, a candid conversation about some things that need to change. And that first thing is making sure that we are in alignment. Alignment. And you're probably thinking, like, what does she mean by alignment? What is this all about? I really haven't heard alignment used in a way that is something that we should desire, right? But yes, we're going to talk about what that is. But you know what I want you to do before I jump into today's content, and that is to engage with me. Okay, like the video, love the video. I prefer. Share it on your timeline, share it in an email, with that link to your colleagues, your leaders, your co-laborers. Tag people in it. Let people know that, hey, this is something that you need to check out. This is some good stuff that is going to help us be everything that God has called us to be, for us to be empowered and to do what it is that we need to do with the time that we have. Also comment, let me know that you're here. Okay, say hello, if you like, ask questions, throw in, your 2 cents to add to this, because I'm definitely a believer that I know I don't know everything. I certainly do not know everything. I do not profess to know everything, but we can learn certainly in community. So I invite you to be a part of my learning community here by commenting on the videos, but then also react. If I say something that you love, throw up those hearts. If I say something to you like, oh, I didn't like that, hey, thumbs down. I don't care. You're not going to like everything I say. And I often say, I don't like everything I say. But it's honest, it's transparent, it's from the word of God, which I consider to be the truth. And it's something that empowers me, and I know it's going to empower you. And sometimes those difficult conversations, the one that hurt the most, are the ones most needed. But then also, those of you who are watching on YouTube, I want you to not only subscribe, but also hit that bell so that you can get notifications as to when I'm live so that you don't miss any new content that is going to be a blessing to you and empower you to do what it is you need to do. And that's my goal here, is to just partner with you in achieving your goals. Okay. So that's good for engagement. Let's jump into today's content. And again, talking about alignment in executive leadership. Tomorrow we'll be talking about balance, but today we're solely focused on alignment, okay, and what that looks like. But let's first start with the why. Why is it important that we talk about alignment? It's important because after doing some research, I knew the number was high, but I honestly didn't expect it to be this high. And after reading more about what people are going through, and honestly, what my journey in executive leadership is, and then also, looking at colleagues and friends of mine and what they're dealing with, y'all, I think this number is higher, okay? But 69% of C-suite leaders, okay, your CEOs, your CFOs, your CEOs, and so on and so on, are considering quitting, y'all. They're considering quitting. They're considering walking away. They're considering a new line of work in order to find a job that is better suited to their well-being, their wellness, their health, their relationships, okay, their overall satisfaction with life. 69% are considering walking away. Now, I just wanted you to know that all these figures that I'm looking at are, after the pandemic. At this point, when it comes to leadership statistics, unless I'm comparing pre and post pandemic, I don't even want to know, because so much changed in our work, in our relationships, and how we do work by the pandemic. And so that we're still currently in, okay? We haven't come out of it. And so and I mean, I guess we could argue, do you really ever come out of it? Because we're still 100 years later, um, you know, dealing with the consequences of the Spanish flu. So that's a whole nother conversation. But so I just want you to know that all of the figures are post, the start of the pandemic. And so we're at 69%, and I would dare say it's more. Okay. That well being, the fact that you don't want to have a heart attack at work, the fact that you don't want to have a stroke in your 30s, the fact that you don't want to sacrifice your marriage or sacrifice being a good parent, being present in your loved ones' lives. You don't want to have to sacrifice any of that for you to reach your goals, to you achieve really the calling on your life, because that's what we're really talking about. We're not just talking about a job. But I pray that what we're really all in agreement with is that it's not just your job, but it's the calling on your life. It's the call, the purpose that you have to fulfill. That the reason that God created you and called you to leadership is because it's something bigger than you that you must do. Okay. And so we're not just talking about jobs, but we're also talking about callings. And 69% of people are wanting to walk away because of how it's being managed. So let's look at, another stat here that is staggering. 73%, I'm gonna zoom in here. 73% of C suite leaders say they can't disconnect and can't take time off. Is this you? Is this people that you know? Yeah, it is. It is, right? We can be honest. It is. 73%, I would dare say it's higher, of people who say, I can't disconnect. I can't turn the phone off. I can't walk away. I can't leave it at work. I can't cut it off. I can't have my weekends. I can't have my 2 days. I can't have a 1 day. And I can't even take the time off that is written in my contract. That's a benefit to me being in the C suite. That's a benefit to me being an executive. I can't do it. Why? 24% of C suite leaders say because there's just too much work to do. 22% say because there's a need to model dedication, for them to be the example of what commitment and dedication looks like. And then 22% say because there's no one else that can help cover the duties and responsibilities that they have if they were to disconnect or take time off. Well, let's really look at this. Let's look at this closer because I'm going to be honest with you and I'm going to say some things you probably won't like, okay? But too much work to do, who's deciding that? Who's deciding that? That it's too much work? Or who's creating so much work? Is it because we're trying to be all things to all people? Is it because we're really not aligning our projects and our tasks with mission and vision, and that we're creating other work that really isn't a priority? That is not adding to the bottom line, that is not helping us achieve the outcomes and goals that we want? Simply because we think it's something we should do? Well, let me tell you, everything you should, just because you can do it doesn't mean that you should do it. Okay? And we have to get better at understanding that sometimes things just won't get done. Okay? That some things aren't a priority. And we have to get better at deciphering, discerning what work is necessary and when we're just creating work to create work. Okay. Perhaps it's a pride thing that because I'm in the C suite, I have to, make it look like I'm doing all of this and doing all of that. When you serve people well, that is the work. You don't have to go create it. Okay. Modeling dedication, that's great. And I'm a huge, I profess the fact that executive leaders should be the first model. Okay, you shouldn't have to bring in people to be the model. You shouldn't have to give other examples as to what dedication, what work, what good work ethic looks like. You should be the model. That's a part of being accountable, being an accountable leader. Okay, but the other thing that you should model is how to take a break, how to be balanced. Okay, how to have a holistic perspective regarding your wellness and your health, how to take your lunch break, how to take shorter breaks to help refresh your mind and rejuvenate you so that you can think clearly and be able to solve problems in the way that you need to. That's the other thing that you need to model, not just dedication and commitment. And then no one to help cover. Well, whose fault is that? Let's be honest here. You haven't groomed the necessary people. Okay, I want you to see me when I say this. You haven't empowered people. You haven't properly trained people. You haven't actually sourced help that you need. One of the things that is so disappointing to see in many organizational structures is that C-suite or executive leaders won't even have a secretary, won't even have supportive staff. Why? Why are we doing that? Okay. So executive leaders need to have supportive staff. They need to at least have someone who can take calls, can create appointments, can follow up with people, to disseminate communication, to do those small tasks that really anyone can be trained to do, so that your time and efforts can be, I guess, to say, redirected to things that only you can do. But pride is a lot of the issues here. Okay, that you don't want to share the role. You don't want to share the responsibilities. Or you're afraid that, oh, if someone else is doing this or they see other people doing that, they'll forget who the leader is. Well, that's just poor leadership. No one's going to forget who the leader is by simply empowering other people to do work and to share tasks and responsibilities. Okay, so you got to rethink this, because we got to be honest with ourselves, and we have to be accountable to ourselves and say, okay, a lot of this that I'm being overwhelmed and frustrated by is no one else's fault but my own. Okay, so we have to do a better job at this. So today, as you're thinking about what needs to change, okay, what transformation needs to happen, you need to identify people who that you can develop and empower to cover when you can't be there, to step in when you can't be there. And you have to be okay with them making some mistakes. You have to be okay with them not getting it completely right. You didn't always get it completely right. You still don't get it completely right. You still make mistakes. You have to be okay with people making mistakes as well as they're learning, and learning how to step in and help, okay, where you need it. So let's own up to that, okay? Also, this is another thing we have to consider as to why alignment is so important. When you look at the C-suite distribution of life, I'm reading from, this is I will say this is pre-pandemic. I'm still looking for something post-pandemic, okay? But this was crazy, y'all, pre-pandemic, where, but the article, I will say, okay, this is 2018. But then a study, okay, by Harvard, it revealed that on average, C-suite leaders worked 9.7 hours per weekday, which totals just 48.5 hours per work week. I like how they said totals just. I'm sorry, that's not a just, okay? 48.5 hours on average is not a just. That's a lot. They also worked 79% of weekend days at an average of 3.9 hours daily. Okay? And 70% of vacation days with an average of 2.4 hours on those days. Okay, let me show my face for a second. Did you hear this? Did you hear what I just said? Pre-pandemic, the average C-suite leader worked 48.5 hours per work week, and 79% of weekends, and 70% of vacation days, y'all. So even the days that we're taking, still working. Okay. And then what I was seeing, what I was still kind of looking up, more recent stats, is that, is it here? Oh gosh, I think I lost it. I think I lost it. I'm sorry. But it was saying that you still have people that are working 50 to 60 hours, or even up to 102 hours per week. And they named people like Elon Musk, who, is again kind of prideful in how he talks about his work ethic, but at the same time has been known to almost cry during an interview talking about how overwhelmed he felt with work. So, in an article where it was talking about, almost glorifying how many hours C suite leaders work, in that same article, it talked about how much they've had to sacrifice in their personal life. Okay, how much they're sacrificing with their health. Um, to work these amount of hours. So that's not good. That's not good, y'all. And then when we look at this, the C-suite distribution of life, when you're talking about working those 50, 60, 102 hours that we're seeing now post-pandemic, what that means is that half of your life is spent at work. Let's forget talking about a work day. Let's forget talking about a work week. Let's talk about your life, y'all. Your life. Half of it will be spent at work. Whereas here it is, 25% or so of it is sleeping. The other 25%, okay, of your waking hours is spent, let's see, grooming yourself, spending time with family. Let's talk about spiritual development, your church, your relationship with God, or whatever that spiritual development looks like for you. Um, Community service, exercising, eating, drinking, okay? All of those activities right here, right here. Now, yes, you're doing some of that at work. No, 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 no. Let me be careful with what I just said. You're not now doing some of it at work. As C-suite, you're doing a lot of it at work. That's why you see showers, becoming more a part of the workplace. That's why you're seeing, couches where you can take a nap and sleep becoming more of the workday. That's why you're seeing kitchens and cafeterias, even nap quarters becoming a big part of, workplaces because you're doing so much more of it there and less in your bed, less in your home. So what am I trying to get to, the point I'm trying to make here is that your work matters. Too often we think, oh, it's just work. No, it's not just work. And as a C-suite leader, you're now taking on a role that truly almost defines your life in a way. I want to be careful with how I use that word define. If you're fulfilling your calling and purpose, yes, absolutely. Okay. But if you're not fulfilling your call and purpose and you know that God created you to do something else, what the heck are you doing? Why are you spending your life doing something that you weren't created to do? Because your work matters. How you treat people there matters, how you feel there matters. Your ethic there matters. Why? Because that's where you're going to spend most of your waking hours. You don't just go work there, you live there. You don't just live at home and then with your friends and your family and community. You live at work too. So it's important that you thrive there because we're talking about your life, not just a job, not just work, but where you'll spend most of your life. Okay, so we got to get this right. We have to. And we do that with alignment. And these are some words I want you to think about when you hear the word alignment. Okay, agreement. Agreement. The Bible says, how can two walk together unless they agree? Do you agree with your work? Does your spirit agree with your work? That need for purpose and partnership, that need for calling and community, that need for mission and membership? Does your spirit agree with how you're spending most of your life? Is there an alliance there? Compatibility. We have got to make this word a part of regular conversations we have about the workplace and teams that we're building. Compatibility is key. We talk about compatibility in relationships. We talk about compatibility in dating and marriage. And you're talking about a lifelong commitment, a covenant. Why wouldn't we talk about it with regards to work? Alignment is order. No one likes disorder. Not really. Okay, not really. You might tolerate it for a little while, but at some point, disorder is going to make you crazy. Okay? We love order. We love it. We want it. We desire it. And when something's out of order, it just doesn't sit right. Congruency. I love this word congruency because it talks about the fact that we want a fluid nature between one thing and another. We want to see the connection. We want to see commonalities. We want to see a correlation. Okay. And we get that by work and life, and I'm sorry, work and personal coming together and being congruent. With alignment, there's expectancy. When things are in alignment, when there's agreement, alliance, compatibility, order, there's some things that you just come to expect, right? You expect peace. You expect teamwork. You expect prosperity. And then with alignment, there's also that word flow. You just want things to flow because there's an alignment there. One thing flows into another. It feels good. When things flow, when you see a stream, when you think about it just flowing, there's not a blockage. There's life there. I mean, there's true life. Think about when a stream becomes blocked or infringed in some kind of way. Water is not able to get where it normally is supposed to be. Then it begins to mess with homeostasis. Then it begins to mess with how the water is able to kind of purify itself and keep itself clean so that the fish life that's there and depends on it can continue to thrive. So you see how when something doesn't flow, it can affect so many other things. That's why alignment is so important. And with regards to alignment, this is what I mean. True alignment is anchored in your divine purpose. It's when your positions, your partnerships, your principles, your priorities, etc. So many more things we're going to talk about today. It's when those things don't align with your purpose that fulfillment and rest come out of reach. But the good news, y'all, is that alignment is a choice. It's a choice. It's within our power. It's within our reach. We can make the choice today. We can decide today that we are going to be in alignment. Okay. And so alignment has a lot to do with what we create. And when we're talking about creation, there's no better lesson of creation and the ability to extract principles of creation than when it all began and how God created the heavens and the earth. And this blew my mind. I didn't even see this coming, y'all, to be quite honest. In my prayer time, God showed this to me, and I was like blown away. I was like, wow, God, this is amazing. I never would have seen the importance or the illustration of alignment with regards to creation in this way otherwise. So let's look at the principles of alignment with regards to what we're creating. Number one, purpose fosters vision. And I encourage you to go read Genesis chapters 1, 2, and 3 to truly understand where I'm coming from. If you're not familiar with the book of Genesis, if you've never read the Bible, it's a great book. It's a great book for you to read. Very interesting, very intriguing, lots of drama, suspense, romance. It's all their action, everything you want in a great book is there. So I encourage you to go read it. Um, so in reading Genesis chapters 1, 2, and 3, these are some principles that we can get. And number one is that purpose fosters a vision. It says, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. He knew what he wanted to do. He knew that his purpose was to, in that moment, to create something sustainable. And God had a purpose, y'all, for creating the heavens and the earth and everything in it. It was formless and void. And that purpose created also and fostered vision of what it should look like. Think about when you're creating something, a program, some new project or a product, um, or creating a new service. Because if you have the purpose of what it should do, the outcome should be, it then creates a vision. And then you begin to see it almost like faith. You don't have it in front of you, but you know what it should look like. So that's that vision of what it is that you're going to produce. And that's what purpose does. It fosters vision of what needs to be created and produced. Number two, we learn that to create, one must align. And what I mean here is that each day of creation, all 6 days, no, really all seven, each of those 7 days that God created the heavens and the earth, it was anchored in purpose. One thing led to another because of purpose, and then it led to another because of purpose, because it led to another because of purpose. That's why it's so important that in organizations, you constantly keep the vision and the mission, the purpose of your organization in front of you. You talk about it in every meeting, in every conversation. Every time you're trying to create a new product or service or create a new initiative, that you come back to your purpose statement, your mission statement, your vision statement, and say, is this in alignment with that? Is this going to help us get there? Okay. Number three, from Genesis, we learned that vision creates a measure for fulfillment. Genesis chapter 1, verse 3 through 4 says, and God said, let there be light, and there was light. God saw the light was good because God had a vision of what he wanted. And so because he knew what he wanted, he was able to measure or qualify, okay, that it was good upon fulfillment. He knew what he wanted. And so when he saw what he wanted, he was able to say, yep, that's it. That's good. Or he could have also said, this isn't it. This isn't it. This is not good. Okay. And so by knowing what we're looking for, that vision, it now gives us a measure of what fulfillment really is and what's good for us. Number four, alignment requires separation and scope. Genesis chapter 1, verses 4 through 5 says, and he separated the light from the darkness. Okay, he saw the light, he called that good. But because he knew what was good, he also knew what wasn't good. Okay, or favorable. Needed? Yes. But part of his plan? Yes. But he still knew like this is beneficial, but this isn't quite as beneficial. And it says he called the light day and he called the darkness night. And Genesis 1:11 says that then God said, let the land produce vegetation. And here we see scope because there's a colon there which says that he wanted seed-bearing plants and trees. Okay? So we have separation. It's our ability that through alignment we know what is beneficial to us, what isn't. But we also come to understand what is our scope. What should we do? What shouldn't we do? Where should we go? Where shouldn't we go? How should we do it? How shouldn't we do it? And so on. It creates those healthy boundaries. Number five, another principle of alignment that we can extract from Genesis is that an aligned life births fulfillment. Because everything God did was in alignment with purpose. God said it's good. He was fulfilled. He was happy. He was satisfied. And that's what can happen for us, that when we align our life anchored in purpose, it's going to birth fulfillment. And that's why we have to strive for each day to be anchored in purpose. Number 6, an aligned life also fosters rest, not just fulfillment, but rest as well. And how do we know this? In Genesis 2 and 2, it says, by the seventh day, God had finished the work he had been doing. So on the seventh day, he rested from all his work. He had a Sabbath, he had Sabbath. And that is what God requires of his people as well. Read your Bible. Okay? God took rest, therefore we should rest. God was intentional with his rest, therefore we should be intentional with rest. At some point, y'all, it has to stop. The working 7 days a week, the working 70% of vacation days, y'all, come on, come on. And if we should strive to be like God, created in his image as spiritual beings, if he did it, so should we. If it's good for him, it's good for us. And then Genesis 2 and 15 says, the Lord God took the man and put him. And that word put means he rested him. Where? In the Garden of Eden, which is his presence. To do what? To work it and take care of it, to be a steward of it. He gave him work, he assigned him work. God has assigned each of us work. Where? And to do that work in his presence, not on Sunday. His presence is just not on Sunday. It's not just in the morning when we pray or in the evening when we pray. If we have time, if we make time, we do have time. But the question is, do we make time? Okay. We are in the presence of God. And he has given us an assignment, work to do in his presence, meaning everything you do at your quote unquote job is still in his presence. And God has also rested you there. There's rest to come from what you do, for the amazing work that you've achieved. And then the seventh principle, misalignment fosters compromise, chaos, stress, and pain. Are you experiencing compromise? Are you experiencing chaos? Are you experiencing stress and pain? Yes, you are. Yes, you are. Why? Why are we experiencing this? Because there's misalignment. And where do we see this in Genesis? We see this in Genesis chapter 3, the fall of Adam and Eve. Because when they were no longer anchored in purpose, when it became more about themselves and not about loving God and loving others as he has commanded us, when it came more about them pursuing their own plans than purpose that God had established for them, that caused misalignment. And misalignments cause them much grief, loss, and pain. Why are you experiencing grief, loss, and pain in the work that you're doing in your overall life? Because of misalignment. But there's good news. We can fix it. We can fix it. We can fix it. Okay, so let's talk about what are the things that should be in alignment. And there's 12 elements to this, okay? Number one, it has to be anchored in purpose. So you got to get your purpose. You got to get that. That is your anchor, okay? For everything else that follows in no particular order. Everything else I'm going to say, the 11 other items, may not happen in any particular order, okay? But purpose has to be first. It has to be. Because God assigned you. You're here for a reason. You're not on accident. You don't exist on accident. You're here because God had you in his mind. He birthed you into this time this generation because of a work that he's assigned for you to do in this generation. You are necessary. You are needed. You are purposed. You have to know that. No one else can do what God created you to do, no matter how big, no matter how small. That's how important you are. And so, for you to know your purpose and the reason God created you, that is your anchor for everything else that happens in life. And so, for you to understand and know your divine assignment and the reason you exist is crucial. And you might be saying, well, how do I know that I'm really, living my purpose? How do I really come to understand that? Number one, pray, seek God's guidance about that thing. Okay, for you to know, God, show me clearly what my purpose is, why it exists. But then I also want you to know that you have many different purposes and they unfold as you live your life. You have your purpose to worship God and love him, right? But you have the specific assignment that he's giving you in whatever sector of life he's assigned you to, whether it be education, medicine, technology, culinary, whatever. How do you know that? Because of your desire and your gifts and talents that have always led you to that thing, despite you trying to avoid it. You still come back to it. I know I was purposed to be an educator, to teach, to explain, to help people understand and grow in wisdom. Because all of my gifts, my spiritual gifts align with that. But also, no matter how far I try to stray from it, I always come back to it in some way or another. As an educator, of course, I taught. As a consultant, I teach. As a coach, I teach. As a minister, I teach. That's I know that's what I'm called to do. But I'm also a daughter. I have purpose to fulfill as a daughter. I'm also a sister. I have purpose to fulfill as a sister. I'm also an auntie. I have purpose to fulfill as an auntie, as a minister, all the different roles that have naturally come a part of my life. There's purpose in that too. So I don't want you to leave here thinking you only have one purpose. You have an overwhelming, overarching purpose, yes, but you also have different purposes in alignment with your roles. Okay. Also, so when you know and have your purpose, that's your anchor. Then we go to your position. So again, in no particular order, but does your position right now, does your job, your role, your duty, your responsibilities that you have in your organization or your business, does it align with your purpose? The industry that you're working in, does it align with your purpose? The tasks that you have to do every day, does that align with your purpose and the gifts and talents that God has given you? The assignment that He has assigned you? If not, start looking for another job. Stop looking for that position because you're out of alignment. And perhaps you're so frustrated in C-suite or executive leadership because that is not where God has called you to be. I'm not saying that He hasn't called you to lead, but perhaps not at that level or within the capacity that you're working with. And if you know that, if you sense that, why are you continue to stay where you are? Get in alignment. Next thing, your principles. You have values, you have morals, you have beliefs. And it's our duty to exercise our faith and our hope through the principles that we have. Does your principles, do they currently align with your position? Or do you constantly find yourself compromising your values? Con- Constantly compromising your beliefs to do a job? What about purpose? Do your principles align with your purpose? Mm. For me, knowing that I'm a child of God, I desire for my values and my morals and beliefs to align with His. And when I see disalignment, oh, that causes all kinds of chaos in my life. And so for me, I'm also, strive to align my principles with the Word of God. Now, whatever your faith or anchor is in regards to spirituality, then, whether it's Christianity, Islam, Scientology, whatever that looks like, okay, or just spiritual measures in general, whatever that looks like for you, is it in alignment? That could be where your frustration is coming from. Okay, so whatever, you know, you profess to believe, it's important that you exercise that. Partnerships, they're two things we as spiritual beings require: purpose and partnership. Okay, so this is where we're talking about your relationships and associations at home, at work, and in the community. Do your partnerships align with your principles? Mm. Do the business partnerships that you have and the contracts that you made, do they align with your principles? Does that relationship that you're currently in, the person you're dating, the person you're engaged to, God forbid the person you're married to, do they align with your principles and the things that you profess to believe in? Do your partnerships align with your position and the duties and responsibilities that you have? You can't be friends with everyone. You can't associate with everyone. Do I still have to explain that to us, right? As C-suite and executive leaders, that we outgrow and during different phases of our life, we move from, one level to another. That also means that, not every person can go with you there. Childhood friends may not be able to go with you there. People that you knew, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, they may not be able to go with you there. Get aligned in your partnerships. Place, place, y'all. And this is so key. I have a friend who is an executive leader, and he was talking about how um, when he moved from one place to another, from one state to another in pursuit of, a better position, that is just wreaked havoc on his job, on his relationship. And so, y'all, location matters. Not and being in alignment, your location being in alignment with your relationships, being in alignment with your position, being in alignment with your purpose. But there are other location factors to consider. The job market. Maybe we are really isn't suitable to the job market, and the position that God is calling you to. Maybe your target audience isn't there. Maybe that's where the frustration is coming from, because you're having to work so hard to find one client, or to reach your audience. Maybe that's not the right place. Maybe it's not the right place simply because you don't have access to resources. One of the thoughts I have is, gosh, when I begin to travel more and, needing to be perhaps out of the country more, or, even flying around the country, it's really beneficial to be in a city where you have a major airport hub, where you can get more direct flights, especially at the point where I'm perhaps married or have children. It might not sound like a big deal, but when you are spending 2 to 3 hours, or maybe 4 to 5, gosh, depending on the type of flight you have, simply because you're connecting, and then with the more cancellations and things like that, the more you risk, having delays and things like that. It may not sound like a lot, but if you travel, that could wreak havoc on your personal life. okay? And the things that you're trying to build there, or it can take away from your work time and being more at the office more and doing things that you need to accomplish. So those things matter when they're out of alignment with your purpose. And then also allergens, your overall health. Depending on where you are, different allergens, different environments just might not be suitable to your overall health, or should I say prosperity, which we're going to talk about in a little bit. So you want to make sure those things align. What about your priorities? Okay, how you manage the three constraints that we all have, which is scope, time, and capital. Okay, how you manage those things and making sure that you're focusing on the right goals is so important. We all have priorities, but we got to get better at prioritizing our priorities. Are your priorities in alignment with your relationships, your partnerships? Is it in alignment with your purpose? Is it in alignment with your current position? Are your priorities in alignment with your place? If it's harder to find clients, you know, because of where you are, um, you know, but you're spending more time on creating products rather than finding better ways to communicate and reach out to your audience, that's an issue. Okay. Oh, I almost skipped one. Sorry. Let me go back. Posture. Your posture is your attitude and mindsets, how you think about things, your lens, your perspective, your self efficacy. Do you believe that you can do things? Imagine, um, as a CEO, you not believing that you're a good leader. Imagine as a CEO, you don't believe that personal work and personal balance is important. Imagine as a, you know, executive leader that you only view things from an elitist type lens or perspective. That's a problem from the standpoint that you're not going to be able to serve people well. And that can start to interfere with your position and how effective you are in your purpose. It can dictate what your priorities are if you have the wrong lens of perspective or a mindset that's not suitable to your purpose. So we have to come to ourselves and say, gosh, do I have the right posture regarding purpose? Is that what's causing all the frustration and the hardship in my life that people around me are trying to bring my attention to and I refuse to see it? Maybe it's my posture that needs to be corrected. Get aligned. Other factors, personality. Now, let me first start by saying God created us all different. We all have our little nuggets of our character and our personality, the things we like, the things we don't like, the things that make us tick and the things that make us happy, and we're also very different. And I do truly believe that God was intentional how he made us and he considered even our personality and with regards to the purpose and assignment that he gave us. I think about the prophet Elijah. He said that he was a hardened type person, hard headed, basically. But he said, but that's okay because the people that I'm sending you to are just as hard headed. Now, that didn't mean that you didn't see growth from Elijah as he grew in leadership, as he grew in walking in his calling. He didn't always remain as hard headed as he was when God first called him. So there is growth and development that's necessary. And so when we come to ourselves and say, gosh, is it my character? Is there qualities that I have in my personality? Is it my lack of adaptability? Is it um, my lack of emotional intelligence or perhaps the fact that it hasn't developed, is that's what causing all the frustration and hardship? Because my personality is not in alignment with my purpose, is not in alignment with my partnerships and the relationships that I need to thrive, it's not in alignment with the place that I'm in because, gosh, the organization that I'm working in, there's a different culture here, and my personality needs to be adjusted, I think, to help me to better work in teams, to better lead people, to for people to be able to see me and trust me as their executive leader. That's something that we have to consider. Is our personality in alignment? And then also, is our power? And with regards to power, I'm talking about our capacity, our abilities, our skills, our gifts, our talents, our education, our training, our anointing, our God's grace. We were talking about Sunday, God's grace, and the fact that God's grace is our ability to do something that He's empowered us to do. And one thing I've learned is that you don't want to outstay your grace. That forever your purpose is, whatever your position is, whatever those relationships God has called you to, He's giving you the grace to be able to manage them well. But there's sometimes when God is calling us out of those things and we still want to stay. We still want to hold on to them. And that's not good because we're now working with limited capacity, limited ability. And that might be the season that you're in, where God is calling you out of a position. God is calling you to leave an organization. He's sending you somewhere else, and you're still trying to hold on to it. So now you're no longer tapping into God's grace, His strength, but you're basically just working on your own, and you don't want to be in that place. So get in alignment with your power. Is your power right aligned with your purpose? And then presentation. Your presentation is how you show up to life. How do you show up to work? It's your aesthetics. It's your appeal, and it matters. I'm not going to get all into how people should look, how they should do their hair, and all that. It's not so much about that. But what I think we do have to do better at as executive leaders, C suite leaders, is owning up to the fact that aesthetics matter and we need to have a certain appeal. Not just in how we look, which is important, how we dress, right? How we present ourselves, how we show up, how we groom, right? But also how we speak, the word choice that we use, being able to kind of read the room, knowing our audience, knowing what makes them feel comfortable in terms of how we present ourselves, how we show up, and knowing and understanding that how we present needs to be in alignment with the purpose, needs to be in alignment with our personality, it needs to be in alignment with our power. There's nothing worse than your presentation not aligning with your power. You have the ability to work in excellence. You know everything that it takes to create a great presentation, to persuade people, and yet you still don't do it. You do a poor job. You didn't put in the time. So we have to, again, own up to this and we have to be in alignment because a lot of the frustration and things that we're experiencing is simply because of how we're showing up. And that's no one else's fault but our own. People are simply responding to how we show up. And then the last two, prosperity. And with regards to prosperity, we want to make sure our prosperity is in alignment with our purpose. And this is just not our physical health, it's not just financial, it's not just mental or social. It's all of these things. It's 12D wellness. And if you watched my series last month, then I talked about, 12D wellness and the fact that it's so many different things, also to include creativity, creative wellness, to include spiritual wellness, educational wellness, occupational wellness, and so on. But also aesthetic wellness, going back to how we present ourselves. It's about growth, it's about development, and it's about being whole in our prosperity. It's not just about wealth. Yes, in C suite, as executive leaders, you're making great money. But when your health is attacked, when you're having a heart attack and stroke because of your stress and the high blood pressure that you're dealing with every single day, what good is that money? And then practice. Practice. Our practice must be in alignment with our purpose. Our practice must be in alignment with prosperity. Why? Because it's our habits, it's the way we do things, it's our process, it's our customs, it's our traditions. Exercise must be a habit. Your diet must be a habit. It is a habit, whether it's a good habit, a beneficial habit is a different conversation, right? But we do need good habits. We need good diets. That's going to attribute to our prosperity, our overall wellness, our growth and development. But so often, you're not exercising or being active every day. That's not in alignment with your position as an executive because you're not going to be able to fulfill what you need to do. All that traveling you have to do, all those meetings you have to be in, having to be sharp in your thoughts, okay, being focused, that requires taking several breaks, not constantly being inundated with work and information, but knowing when to take a step back. That's practice, and it needs to be in alignment. Okay, so those are the 12 things, y'all, the 12 elements of alignment that we need to be pursuing. Fulfillment. Okay. Oh, so let me go back. I skipped this part. All of this leads to fulfillment. Okay. All of it. When we do this well, when we meet the 12 elements of alignment, that's when we begin to achieve fulfillment. And fulfillment is simply our ability to look at the life we have created, truly created, the life that we've designed, the life that we have produced via challenging and sometimes heart-wrenching decisions. This isn't easy, y'all. I know I go through it and I'm like, do this, do this, do this. But let's be real, this isn't easy. This isn't easy. There's some things that you need to get in alignment that's going to cost you some relationships that are dear to you. It's going to cost you some practices that you actually love doing. It's going to cost you that position that you've invested a lot of time and energy into, but you have to leave. It's going to cost you that place. You might have to leave your hometown. You might have to leave that organization where you love and adore your colleagues. But it has to happen for you to experience fulfillment, a thriving life. And again, fulfillment is simply our ability to look at the life we have created via challenging and sometimes heart-wrenching decisions and being able to say, this is good. This is purpose realized. Just as God did when he was creating the heavens and the earth, he said, oh, this is good. That's what we want. We want to be able to look at our life, not just the work life, not just the personal life, but all of it and say, this is good. Not this is painful, not this is overwhelming, not I can't do this anymore, not enough is enough, not I need a way out, not something's I got to get away, I got to run away, I got to call it quits. Alignment is a choice. Remember I said that at the very beginning. We got to choose well, okay? So, the next thing I want us to truly get here is that we're not talking about private and personal. just what you do at home with your loved ones, your husband and your wife, your significant other, your children, your community service, your church. That's great. We're not just talking about getting that in alignment. We're not just talking about your work and professional life, getting all that in alignment. Y'all, we're talking about all of it because it's your life. It's your whole life. Get that. And too often we have the attitude, that's work. I want to just leave it at work. Is just work. It's not just work, it's your life. And it's not just personal, it's your life. What we need is alignment, the congruency of our whole life between these two different sectors. Because this is the thing, when your life comes to an end and we face judgment, God is not going to judge you just based on what you did in your private and personal life. He's not just going to judge you on what you did in your work or professional life. He's going to judge you on all of it. All of it. That's why your work matters. That's why how you work matters. That's why how you make people feel matters. That's why how people make you feel matters. Where you spend so much of your life. It's your life, y'all. So don't tell me God doesn't care about your work. Jesus called, I think, what, 9 out of 12 all of his disciples from work. From work. They weren't called from synagogues and temples. They were called while they were fishing. They were called while they were collecting taxes. They were called, okay, while they were doing so much. Daniel, he was recognized for being a man of God, not at the church house, but in the king's palace. Joseph, he wasn't recognized as being a man of God, and God didn't bless all of his superiors, um, because Joseph served as an altar boy because he was a priest. No, it's because he was simply a man of God in his workplace. Because it wasn't one or the other, it was everything. And your life, all of it is this in the presence of God. Okay? So, yes, you live at work too. You live at work too. So create the life that is anchored in purpose and will bring you fulfillment and rest. So, how do we do that? The daily assign alignment task here, okay? Because it's time to align all your whole life. It's time to align your whole life with purpose so that you can experience fulfillment and rest that God intended for you. Fulfillment and rest. Not just fulfillment, not just some rest, fulfillment and rest. So pray. Number one. That's number one. You got to pray and ask God for guidance. You need wisdom. Ask God for it. You need understanding. Ask God for it. He's there to help you. We need partnership. And for those of you who aren't religious or have a faith or, don't have that relationship with God, you're still seeking that somewhere. But I want all of us to understand that the first relationship we were to have is with God, our creator, before we were ever to have a relationship with a spouse or our leaders or, children or anyone else. And so that's important to know. Communicate with God. That's what prayer is. Talk to him. You can't do this on your own, and you weren't supposed to. Set boundaries. Okay, establish scope for your purpose. And this is so important. Again, scope is a business term we use a lot, but it's simply just establishing boundaries. And when people say, hey, I would love for you to do this, I need you to do that. What do you think about this partnership? What do you think about this project? Y'all, go in prayer. And if it doesn't align, this is what you tell them. Thank you so much for inviting me to participate in this opportunity. But currently, this just doesn't align with my purpose. This doesn't align with my current position. This doesn't align with my priorities. This doesn't align with my personality. It's simple. So you tell them I said so. If you find it hard to say no or to say yes with boundaries, that's what you say. It just doesn't align. You don't need any further explanation than that. Know your purpose, of course. That's the anchor, right? But if you don't know, until you know, love God and love people. That's the greatest commandment. That's our charge. And even when you know your purpose, that's still what we're supposed to be doing through purpose. Loving God and love people. If you focus on doing that right, you're going to come to understand and identify what your purpose is. Problem solve. Proactively address pertinent issues, y'all. We're so passive. We're passive to a fault when it comes to problems and issues, whether it's in your relationships, whether it's at work. Now, definitely pray for wisdom for the things that you need to address because everything doesn't need to be addressed. Every time you're offended, you don't have to say so. Every time something doesn't go right, that doesn't mean you need to say something about it. Use wisdom. Because if you're always calling out people's faults, if you're always talking about problems and never offering a solution, if you're always being pessimistic and negative, that's going to interfere with your ability to be effective in your purpose. And it's going to misalign some things because that's dealing with your posture and you don't want that posture. Okay? So pray about it, but certainly be proactive. Be confrontational when it comes to problems that you're like, "Hey, this is misaligned. We need order here. We need congruency. We need alliance. We need agreement." And this is not helping us. So we got to do that. And then communicate clearly. Let others know what you need. Sorry, there should be an S there. Communicate clearly. We communicate with God. We need to communicate with others what our needs are. And we're going to talk more about communicating our needs clearly in episode 3 when we're talking about the grace to know what season you're in. Okay. Um, and why that's important. So we got to do this every day. Okay. This is that practice, making good habits of making sure that we're in alignment. Okay. As with purpose as our anchor. So, y'all, that's it for today's episode. I pray that it looks like I'm having some issues here. So, let me go back to doing this. I want to know your thoughts. I want to know your comments. Was this a blessing to you? This, open some things, like open new ideas, share some new ideas, some new perspectives that you haven't considered with regards to alignment. Do you see where the frustration is in your life? Do you see the things that are misaligned that you need to make some changes regarding? I pray that all of this transpires today. I pray that this is going to help you get where you need to be. And again, be everything that God has called you to be. So be sure to join me tomorrow. Okay, for episode 2, talking about work personal balance, not work life balance. This is intentional. Work personal balance and executive leadership. Okay, and you're going to understand more of why that is. Okay, and y'all, lead my heart. We're so blessed to be with you and to be a part of your life. Thank you for entrusting us to help just bring wisdom and perspective into the work that you do and to coach you into being the best version of yourself. Please join us tomorrow live at 2 p.m. Central, okay? And share this video with others so you know this will be a blessing too. That's it for today, you all. Have a wonderful rest of your Tuesday. And remember, in everything you do and with everything you have, love God and love people. Goodbye.